welcome to Courageous Wellness. My name is Erica Stein.
And I'm Allie French, and this is a podcast about individual journeys toward wellness and how to navigate it all.
After Allie experienced a cancer diagnosis in her 20s,
and Erica went through a sustained weight loss and self-love journey, we created a platform to interview real people from all walks of life that have combined all types of practices. From physical wellness to emotional and spiritual, we hear courageous stories and focus on why it's important to share them.
we are now certified integrative nutrition health coaches, and together with our community, we are learning to live our best lives by telling one courageous story at a time.
It takes courage to share these journeys, and by talking about them and sharing personal stories of real people, we aim to destigmatize the process. Join us as we and our community share our courageous wellness. On this week's episode, we are pleased to welcome Brooklyn Borough President Eric Adams. Eric had a 22-year career in law enforcement as a part of the NYPD, was elected to and served for 4 terms in the New York State Senate, and in 2013 was elected as the president of the Borough of Brooklyn. Although Eric has had a long career in public service, today he shares with us a more personal health journey of his and how that journey has helped to inform current health policy initiatives for the Borough of Brooklyn.
In 2016, Eric was diagnosed with type 2 diabetes. Having lost vision in his left eye and having suffered from nerve damage in his hands and feet, he went against the initial recommendations of his doctors and instead pursued a whole food, plant-based diet. Within 3 months, Eric reversed his diabetes diagnosis, and he has subsequently been able to impact the health of countless New Yorkers facing chronic disease. We really appreciated having this in-depth conversation about food, health, and health advocacy with President Adams, and hope that you leave this conversation feeling a little bit more empowered about your own health journey. Enjoy the episode. We have an exciting new discount for our listeners with Four Sigmatic. Four Sigmatic offers superfood coffee and elixirs to upgrade your daily routine. The powerful antioxidants, antiviral effects, and immune-boosting properties of mushrooms transform your cup of joe from an energy-boosting treat to a health-enhancing choice. Along with mushroom coffee, Four Sigmatic also offers mushroom elixirs, mushroom hot cocos, and other shroom-filled products.
Erica uses the lion's mane in her morning superfood coffee, and even though I hate mushrooms, I absolutely love the products, especially the matcha latte powder, which contains maitake mushrooms and adaptogens. For 10% off Four Sigmatic products, visit foursigmatic.com and use the code COURAGEOUS at checkout, and there's also a direct link in our show notes. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you, ladies, for having me.
To start off, can you tell us and our listeners a little bit about your personal journey in your own health and wellness?
Well, I think that my journey is probably, the beginning is atypical to the average American encounter. And it's amazing when I start to reflect on it, on how much we fell into a comfort of, what our life journey should be and could be. And it's almost this term that we're hearing a lot about now with coronavirus, our new norms, as we go from being healthy to unhealthy to, almost just waiting to die, basically. And so after 22 years of being in the police department, I believe my body finally reached a point that it could no longer take the abuse that is sustained from the diet that I had, and just a typical, American diet. And I looked really physically, I looked fine because I spent a lot of time in the gym. I exercised a lot. I ran from time to time, and I looked physically, but I didn't take an internal selfie, as I like to say. And, I just want to dispel the myth right away about, do cops like donuts? Yes, we do. All kind. I mean, I must have consumed from a jelly donut to a custard. But, that was the diet. Fast, greasy, fatty, sugar, processed. And after I left the police department, I became a state senator. And I served in the state senate for 7 years. And same diet, just transitioned from being a police officer to an elected official. And it wasn't until I became the borough president of Brooklyn. The Brooklyn Borough President is equivalent to what you would call a county executive. Brooklyn is the largest borough out of the 5 boroughs in New York City. I was out of the country and I received a pain in my stomach. I thought it was colon cancer because I lost a real good friend to colon cancer, and the symptoms were the same. And, men you have to drag to the hospital, you just suck it up. But I knew that something was wrong, and I decided when I came back to the country, I went to see my internist, and he sent me to have a colonoscopy and to check my stomach also. While I was under, they checked my stomach and my colon. When I came back, the doctor told me that, Eric, you have an ulcer and your colon is fine, but your real problem is your diabetes. Your diabetes is at a coma level. Your A1C is extremely high. And at that time, I lost my sight in my left eye. And I was losing in my right, and my hands and feet were tingling for about a month or so. Little did I know that it was due to the advanced stages of diabetes. I had nerve damage in my hands and feet. I couldn't even feel my right thigh. I thought it was from playing football earlier in my life. And the vision loss, my blood pressure was high, my PSA for my cholesterol was high, my cholesterol was high. I walked into the doctor's office with no medicine. I walked out with medicine for my 3 medicine for my diabetes. He said he had to put me on insulin right away. Medicine for my vision loss, for my nerve damage, for my ulcer, for my blood pressure, for my cholesterol. I just walked out as a pharmaceutical company. And I just said I didn't sign up for this. I didn't sign up. What's amazing is that when he said I was diabetic, that a part of me said, hey, you knew this was coming. Your mother's diabetic. Your brothers and sisters are either diabetic or pre-diabetic. Your aunties are diabetic. And we use a term that, they have a little sugar. We sweetened the term of diabetes. And it wasn't until he shared the vision loss and the fingers and toe loss. I said, wait a minute, I didn't sign up for this. This is not what I thought this diabetes thing was about. And so I just decided I did something scientific. I went to Google and Googled reversing diabetes. And all of this information came up. And I found some great doctors, Dr. Esselton in Ohio from the Cleveland Clinic. When I called him, told him who I was, and stated that I was reading your material and I want to know, is it too late for me? And he told me to fly down to see him. And I took an early morning flight, flew down to see him. I got to the airport, as fate will have it. There was a book there on the shelf from Dr. Greger, How Not to Die, Dr. Barnett's book, Reversing Diabetes. And I was reading while I was on the plane, and I was like, what is this that I'm reading? And little did I know, Dr. Esselton, when I saw him in Ohio, he told me that, listen, you can reverse your condition if you would give up the food you eat. And I remember saying to myself, what's wrong with this nut? I'm losing my sight, and he's telling me to give up fried chicken. Is this guy for real? And, life is funny. When I got back to New York and I started throwing out the items in my fridge and in my pantry, from that session I had with him, I realized that I had nothing fresh in and that I was consuming. Everything was processed. All the food that I was eating, there was nothing that was fresh. And so I just committed myself from that day. And 3 weeks later, after going to a whole food plant-based diet, my vision came back. My ophthalmologist was blown away. She said, I've never seen anything like this before. She told me prior to that I had to turn in my driver's license. She said, you can no longer legally drive. You're legally blind and you have to turn in your license. And 3 months later, my A1C went in complete reversal. My nerve damage went away. My ulcer went away. All of these things went away without medicine. And I've continued on this journey. I never felt better, lost 35 pounds. And it's just an unbelievable journey. And although I was pleased, there was a level of anger that I had that so many people are living this life every day believing that they are going to make this transition and have to continue to adjust to the new norm of taking that pill everywhere. Make sure it's packed in your bags. Make sure you're injecting yourself, going to the hospice, visiting your family members. It's criminal what has happened to the American people. And I'm dedicated and committed to at least giving people the empowering information that you can live, not just survive.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing your story, because it's very powerful. And I think a lot of people in this country can really relate to it. You know, both of my parents have reversible diabetes. And there was a period of my childhood where we grew up with no money, and all we could afford to eat, right, was fast food and processed food and all of that. So I've definitely lived it and been there. But I'd love to know too, so you get this prescription full of medicine, and now you go see this doctor, and like you said, you're like, how am I ever going to give up fried chicken? Like, how am I going to give up these foods that I love? Because food is so emotional, and we have these patterns, right? Like, even myself, like, fast food is comfort food because that's what we ate when I was really little, right? So what was the process like of then changing your diet, like that emotional component for you of going, okay, I literally have to get everything out of my house because there's no Whole Foods here. Like, how was that process emotionally beginning a whole food, plant-based diet?
It's a great question because, food is like crack. It's like heroin, and you have to respect it as such. And, if you think you're just going to say, okay, I'm not going to eat this anymore, you in for a reality check. I went through some serious withdrawals, no different than any form of drug, alcohol, cigarette smoking, eating. I will never look down on a person hooked on drugs again in my life. Those first 7 days, I woke up thinking about steak and chicken and just, it was hard, sweats and just fighting and just, I really believed that I couldn't do it. And it wasn't until probably day 8 or 9 that I said that, you got to make a decision here. You're going to have to choose. And I just really immersed myself in it. And the first 2-3 weeks, or probably the month, my food was so terrible. I mean, I would eat my cereal in the morning was flax seeds without grinding them. I would eat these different mixtures. But I said, I'm going to try. I wasn't a cook. I knew nothing about cooking. I ate out all the time. And now 90% of what I eat, if not higher, I cook myself. But it was about just not giving up. And I started learning my taste buds. And I started finding out, well, I like a salty taste. So what is the combination of salt that I'm looking for? What am I trying to? I started reading up on my tongue and different places on my tongues that look for different tastes, the power of dates to deal with your sweet taste that you're looking for, the power of different things. Then I started searching spices and learning that spices are more powerful than the food you eat. Cumin, oregano, turmeric with pepper mixed with it, and what does it do for your liver and absorption. And I started learning about these spices, and every week I would learn a different spice and how to cook with it. And so it was a slow evolution that I was not on a diet. I was on a lifestyle change, and the relationship with my food was a different relationship. I used to eat and then feel bad after I ate something. I knew when I was eating that garlic, how I was building my immune system. Everything that was in my bowl, my Buddha bowl, I call it, of a mixture of food, I knew that it was playing a role. So the relationship was different, but it was not an easy one. It was an evolution. And like any evolution, it takes time, because I identified those cupcakes and those different food items as the relationships I had with my aunt. My dad used to We used to eat this cake whenever I did bad in softball or baseball. And so when the doctor was telling me I had to give up these items, I was not only giving up on what I was consuming, I was giving up on those relationships. And so when I'm talking to people about no longer eating certain items, I'm sharing with them with the understanding that food is comforting. It is where we go when we're sad, when we broke up with a loved one, when we lost a job, when we're angry, when we're under stress. And people, if you don't know that, you don't realize that you are doing it. And that is part of this whole process. So it's not only a consumption of what you eat, it is really starting to identify who you are as a person. I'm not the human being that I was 3.5 years ago. I'm a different human being right now.
I love hearing stories like yours because, well, Erica and I are both health coaches now, certified integrative nutrition health coaches, which was actually as a result of our own journeys too. We're both in different fields. And after a cancer experience when I was 29 years old, and she had this 50-pound sustained weight loss experience too, through like self-love, and similar to what you're talking about, like this evolutionary sort of experience where it's not just a physical experience, it's emotional, it's mind, body, spirit, it's all of it, right? It's holistic in that sense. And I get excited hearing stories like yours because it's really it's not an easy journey, but it's a really exciting one, because when you can change that relationship, when you can also start to change the way food works for you as fuel, and maybe develop a new, like, I love eating, I love cooking, it's still emotional for me, but it's now, what can I give myself to feel good forever, not for the moment, which is going to then make me feel really bad after that. And that cycle. And so I just get very excited and a little bit nerdy when I hear stories like yours, because it feels hopeful. And I'd love to touch a little bit on something you sort of touched on earlier in your journey, which is, a lot of Americans, don't know that food, or what we perceive food to be culturally a lot of the time, which is oftentimes processed or fast food, as Erica was talking about. And there are so many reasons we go to that. It's affordable, and like certain communities only have options. Erica and I are really passionate about food accessibility and affordability. And there are food deserts all over this country, which certain communities don't even have access to fresh food. But my question for you is, how do you start to explain to people, or how did you start to understand when you're saying that you never will look at like a person suffering with addiction the same way again? How did you learn? Was it through your experience with Dr. Esselstyn at the Cleveland Clinic? Is he at Cleveland Clinic, you said?
Yes, Cleveland Clinic. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Or how did you know that like processed food and things like that can have the same effect on the brain, that it's not just an aspect of willpower, but it's also, there's aspect of like addictive food that's made in laboratories that keeps us sick, keeps people sick and addicted to it. When did your relationship with that, like, how did that start to transform for you?
And that is an observation that people need to understand. There is nothing wrong with you.
Yes.
People in this industry of food are masters at colors, masters of how the brain operate, how to attract you, how to put food in your grocery stores, which aisle to put it down, what colors you need to look at, how to really connect with your children. They spend hundreds of millions of dollars just on, how do I get your attention? How do I make you feel good about yourself? And so when people feel as though, I don't have the willpower, something is wrong with me. No, there's nothing wrong with you. The system has been built to set you up and for you to fail. And you need to understand that. And once you start acknowledging that, then you can move in the direction of correcting that. And I started reading more and more and more and understanding that what the two of you are doing, it's so important because our healthcare system is basically built on the medical aspect of it, of really is the sick care of treating the symptoms, but no one is dealing with the emotional attachment that people are dealing with, what's causing them to be sick in the first place. You need a life coach. You need someone that understands the behavioral science of this. Like, how do you know that the donut you eating is impacting your diabetes and you still eating it anyway? It's not medical. There's a reason you are attached to that donut. There's a reason that you are self-poisoning yourself and self-medicating yourself. And if we don't respect that, we're not going to really start turning the curve. And so once I started reading and looking into how the brain operates and the same pleasure senses where drugs and alcohol and the same endorphins that is released, once I started looking at that, it just started making so much sense of why it was so difficult to wean myself off instantly, and it was a slow process. I was going through the same process as anyone that is addicted to something. And so the more and more you become knowledgeable of that, support groups, some of the things we're doing here in the city of having all of our churches have health ministries, because you need support to get through this. You need people around you to be a part of this evolution and journey. If you're married, you will want your mate to support you through this. You don't want your mate, really tearing you down because you no longer eat meat. What blows my mind, if you want to see people be angry, let them learn you're not eating meat. Oh my God, it's like, what do you think? You special? You think you better than anyone? You can say that, listen, I am using some drug, and they say, okay, we're gonna accept you into the circle. But once you say you're not eating meat, it's like what? Were you some type of weirdo? So what we are doing, particularly in the African American community, which people think plant-based vegan is a white thing. Oh, you think you're so white now. We're showing the connectivity between slavery and the food that people are eating. We've taken dangerous food and turned it into soul food, and it is in all of our communities, and we're educating people so they can see the connection. Because I think once people start to realize that the reason your baby has that asthma pump is because of what you're serving him. The reason he can't sit still in the 3rd grade is because of what you're putting on his plate at home. We are showing people the connection between health, crises, behaviors, depression, all of these things that are food related. Alzheimer's, we had some great doctors here. We had an event here at Borough Hall around Alzheimer's and dementia and food. The place was packed. We're showing people you are not ill because of your DNA. You're ill because of your dinner, and you could turn it around. And that is empowering to people. And that is what we're showing folks.
That is empowering to people. And I think, with the current health crisis that's going on right now, it's bringing light to health disparities in different communities that have always existed. But now, it's getting more attention on a grander scale, which it should, because it's like, it is empowering, and it's not okay that the system is particularly stacked against certain communities, right? Like, even the death rates are higher I was reading something about in Chicago, between Black communities and white communities, there are higher death rates in Black communities just in Chicago, same city, but because of, certain pre-existing conditions, systemic racism in healthcare in general. But then it's like, but if people don't know that it's sort of like being stacked against them, how can they understand that even just changing their dinner is an act of, like a revolutionary act in a way?
We wanted to take a quick moment away from this episode to share an exciting new discount code we have with Energy Bits. Energy Bits is a company that sells bits of whole food edible algae, spirulina and chlorella, for vitality, immunity, energy, recovery, beauty, and more. Energy Bits are sustainable, non-GMO, and provide pure, safe, protein-packed, plant-based nutrition from real food. Everything from the company is consciously and sustainably sourced, and they only sell the highest quality spirulina and chlorella. This edible algae is also the most alkaline and nutrient-dense food in the world and is used by professional athletes and wellness enthusiasts alike. These little bits pack a major punch.
Erica and I are currently taking Energy Bits daily, blended into our smoothies, mixed into a dairy-free yogurt bowl, or taken individually as tablets with our other daily superfood supplements. We both have been using the Vitality Bits specifically to boost our immune system and overall health. Vitality Bits are 50% chlorella and 50% spirulina, and it is really unmatched in its nutrient profile. I also really love the Beauty Bits, which promote glowing skin, better energy, and total beauty from the inside out. If you want to try Energy Bits, you can save 20% on your order when you visit energybits.com and use the code CWPodcast at checkout. Let us know what you think and tag us on Instagram at Courageous Wellness. We know you will love the products as much as we do. You can also check out the direct link in our show notes. Now, back to the episode.
And I'd love to go into your initiatives and how you work through this, because I think that aspect too of, right, when my family did not have much money, we survived on dollar menu McDonald's, right? That was just the reality of our existence. And so whenever I hear people talk about in wellness communities, it can often be said, oh, well, you need to make the time to go make this. That wasn't a reality for my mom, who was single and working 2 jobs. And, there was that drive-through and she needed to feed her children. And then, of course, that concept, like you said, of that community, right? It was actually, I have a 50-pound weight loss, but my brother lost 100 pounds and my mom also lost 100 pounds, right?
Love it,
but
love it.
Both of these things happened for them after our financial situation in our family did start to change for the better, right? Because there was this component of when it was really hard, it was just easy and cheap, and my mom was doing the best she could, right? And those are those dollar menus, so it's like we need the knowledge and we need to empower ourselves to know that our choices really do matter, but also, right, people don't have access or they can't necessarily afford whole foods, right? So I think that's hard. So maybe you can talk to that and some of the initiatives you do to support and help that as well. Because we were on free lunch, my brother and I, and that was also not, this
Right.
was a long time ago. I'm in my early 30s now, but at that time it wasn't the most nutritious food either, in the public school systems in Los Angeles. But yeah.
And that is so important, and I really love your narrative and your story, because I was able to get my mother to go through a whole food plant-based diet, and after 2 months, mommy was diabetic for 15 years, and she was 7 years on insulin, and after 2 months she was off her insulin, and at the age of 80, and so it's never too late for those who are out there believing that well, it's too late for me, I'm already ill. That is not true. It is reversible. And poverty is real. And, Maslow's hierarchy of need of food, shelter, clothing, many people think that at the top end of the pyramid of self-actualization, when you could talk about having the luxury of eating healthy. And, it's unfortunate that many of us who are in this space of wellness it don't have the story you just shared. They just had to transition to eating something different. They didn't have to transition into having a meal at all. And that's a different conversation when your only option is that dollar menu. So we have to start in our country, we have to start looking at this whole term called the social determinants of health. And we need to put money into those real obstacles that prevent people from having the quality of life. I need to subsidize the meal plan that you and that your mother and a family like your mother, I need to subsidize that to make sure you don't have to get that dollar menu. That dollar, I'm going to add $2 to that and give you a more healthy meal. Because if I give you that healthy meal, then you're not going to feed the crises. And the big problem is that government is feeding the crises. Anytime you have a school system that is in conflict with the Department of Health is spending millions of dollars all over the country talking about fighting childhood diabetes, childhood asthma, and childhood weight problems, obesity. But in New York, for example, we're feeding our children 960,000 meals a day. That causes childhood obesity, childhood diabetes, childhood asthma. Our correctional facilities, we are feeding our inmates food that we know is going to cause them sick. Senior centers, adult daycares, hospitals. You're in a hospital for colon cancer. You get back to your room, you're having the food that caused the colon cancer in the first place. If we don't move from the caloric consumption to nutritional consumption, we'll never get it right. And many people don't do that. We're seeing it every day. Some smart people have never really understood how we're feeding the crises. And so I think one of the most important things we can do as policymakers is that we need to identify the social determinants of health, and we need to start to put our resources in those social determinants. We need to make food affordable. We need to make food must look good, taste good, and be good for you. We need to show people how to do it on a small budget. We did a video showing people how to shop in a supermarket, how you can get dry beans, and you can make patties, a bean burger, how you can make soup, a stew. We need to show people. We were at a food pantry giving out food around Thanksgiving, and the number of people I handed a beet to looked at it and say, I don't know what to do with this. So part of what we need to do is show people how to eat healthy, how to cook a meal, how to chop it up, how to grate it, how to make ice cream out of frozen bananas and cacao powder and carob powder, all of these healthy things. And so we need to go down and stop being so high up and mighty. Let's meet people where they are, and let's take them where they ought to be. Let's not meet them where we are and expect for them to catch up with us.
Yeah. Thank you. Like I said, Erica and I get really excited about this stuff because, it's interesting because when we sort of moved into this space, which happened very organically, this wellness world, I'm going to target the Los Angeles wellness world, which we are part of an amazing community here, but the LA wellness world is particularly privileged, and let's call it, it's like pretty white too on top of that, right? Like and it can be very much about like appearances of like green juice and hiking and like, it's like, oh, what do people do all day? Do they not go to work? Like, you know what I mean? Oh, I can just like make smoothies and hike all day. That's great. But that's not most people's reality, right?
Right.
And so part of what we've tried to do is how do we not only expand, like you're talking about, create education and accessibility to people who can be empowered by it, but also educate the sort of very privileged community about how much sort of how out of touch some aspects of that can be as well. And like you said, not just meet the people where we are or where someone else is, but where like they are. And that's how change can actually happen. And one of the things I was reading about that you guys have done, I think it was this past year in 2019, was your lifestyle medicine clinic pilot. And as health coaches, I love seeing that it's a team of doctors, dietitians, and health coaches that came together, and that there was a positive response, and it was renewed for 2020. Can you talk to us a little bit about that? And I'm curious, like what the results were, what actually happened, and then the demand for it after that pilot.
really exciting. We are excited about the program. It's at Bellevue Hospital, and as Faith would have it, we the Bellevue Hospital is the oldest hospital in America, and we have the first lifestyle medicine clinic in Bellevue Hospital in America. Health and Hospital Corporation, one of the largest hospital systems in America. And it is about lifestyle medicine, where we are not looking to treat symptoms, but we're looking to treat underlying reasons that people get sick in the first place. And it's a team of people, from nutritionists to health coaches to doctors, and we're looking at how do we reverse people's health conditions, get them off medicine, and really start educating them. Now, our healthcare system does not support a system like this, because when you're speaking to a nutritionist or a life coach, you can't do it one time and then disappear. You need that interaction and that engagement. But even with the impediments, we have been extremely successful. We have over 100 people that are in the program doing extremely well. 700 people are on the waiting list to get in the program. So you see there's a demand for it. We're going to look to expand it into some of our other safety net hospitals in the borough. And it is teaching people things that we talked about, how to, cook meals, what's the right meals to cook, how to go and shop for your food. All of these things that one would take for granted, but really you don't know. And you know what? You don't know what you don't know. And so the Bellevue experiment, we're looking to expand it. As you stated, we were successful in getting another year, but it's unbelievable that we have to convince people to do this in the first place. But we're going to keep chugging along, and hopefully we'll keep showing the data. We should have the data released in about a month or so to show the first phase. The preliminary numbers are pretty impressive, and we're waiting to do a full analysis on exactly how well we're doing. So we're excited about the program. We think it has a great chance of really changing what we think about medicine, not only in New York, but in America.
Yeah, you guys are setting the tone for what I hope we can all adopt and continue to grow all around the country.
Yeah. You also, I noticed, have a Meatless Monday initiative, which I think is really cool and I think can be implemented, right, like nationally. Can you maybe touch on, right, like I've heard so many people say, can one day off of not eating meat actually do anything, right, to my body, to my well-being? So maybe you can touch on that about like why Meatless Monday is important, or just choosing one day a week to quit animal consumption.
Yes. I think for a number of reasons. Number one, if Americans just move away from meat 1, 2, 3 days, it will have a major impact on the destruction of our planet. Many people talk about how do we deal with the burning of fossil fuel? How do we change the type of fuel and type of energy sources we use? And how do we change emissions standards? But you don't hear any conversation at the overconsumption of meat on the planet, and what it is doing to our environment, from the waste from cows to what we're doing in the Amazon by deforestation. That is for raising cows and cattle feed. And 44% of the food that we grow goes to feeding animals. So when you start to look at the impact of our overconsumption of meat, and how not only is this hurting our mother, but it's hurting Mother Earth, and we can make a difference. So when you look at Meatless Mondays, I think it helps in several different ways. Number one, when you go through Meatless Mondays, you're going to wake up Tuesday and you're going to say, wow, I didn't die. I can actually go a day without eating meat. There's some people that believe meat is the center of their plate and the center of their life. The thought of not having meat for a whole day is just so hard for many people. But if you're able to do it that one day and taste something healthy, try something different, able to do that, you come out saying, wait a minute, I can do this. And that's what we're looking for right now, for people to see they can do this. So you have the tangible results of decreasing the consumption of meat throughout our entire country, particularly in a place like New York, where we feed hundreds of thousands of people. We have 1.1 million students in school alone. So every day we feed them twice a day. So you have that area. We feed people in correction, ACS, hospitals, senior centers. So if we can get our entire city to go meatless Mondays, we will be helping our ozone, and we would start to carve a space where people would start doing the R&D that's needed to come up with great tasting meals, because we're a market for it. So we can create a market just on our buying power. Then it would encourage people to start looking and say, you know what, maybe I could do a meatless Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. And then eventually start making the transition to see how good their bodies would feel, how they don't walk around bloated and constipated and heavy and feeling as though they're always lethargic and tired. They say, wait a minute, I'm noticing on Mondays, when I do my meatless Mondays, my body feels different. That is what we want to do. We want to introduce people so they can start the evolution. And so we've been successful. We have meatless Mondays in our schools. We have meatless Mondays in our hospitals. We're looking to get other places to have a default. We've been successful in our correctional facilities, and we're going to keep pushing until everyone will start to understand it's not about caloric consumption, it's about healthy, nutritional food. And our food pantries and our food harvests, all of these places that we feed people, we want to make sure that they know that it is about healthy food, not just any food.
Yeah, and our food system, Dr. Mark Hyman talks a lot about this, but our food system and our medical system and big pharma, big food, they're all so deeply intertwined.
Yes.
And so it really is, like you said, even just making a little shift could make a massive shift as far as demand and creating the market for it too, which is the goal, right?
Yes. And that's so important what you said about, I believe that our Department of Health and our Health and Hospital Corporation, all of these groups, our Department of Education, Department of Health, Health and Hospital, those are the agencies in the city, they need to all be together in the purchasing of food. Our pediatricians should have input in what food we're buying and serving our children in our pre-K and 3K level. All of this must be intertwined together. Our medical professionals should be dictating what food we're serving in our schools, our hospitals, our jails, not someone that knows nothing about nutrition. Educators educate. Nutritionists that are well educated should be deciding what food we are consuming. There's a lack of understanding that what we're feeding people is causing our crises, and our crisis is not sustainable. 30 million Americans with diabetes, 84 million are pre-diabetic, spending 80 cents on the dollar for chronic diseases, creating viruses, overuse of antibiotics that's creating superbugs, pandemics. We haven't seen anything yet if we don't turn the course. How we're living is not sustainable, and we need to understand that.
Yeah, no, thank you so much. And thank you so much for the work that you are doing and joining us today. And just, it's truly amazing. And we need more people like you out there doing this good work.
Thank you.
So, to wrap up, we always ask our guests a couple of questions. And the first one is always a little fun. But what do you do as this, busy man, working on, health and policy? What are some of the ways that you take care of yourself? Do you have any self-care practices that are non-negotiable?
Learning how to and enjoying turning down the noise. And it's amazing, something that we have complete control over. We give it to others, and that's quiet. The body cannot be in fright and flight stage and heal. It needs to be in the healing stage. And when I meditate in the morning and in the evening, and when I feel the need to just go somewhere and be quiet for a moment, I do so, and it's not negotiable. I'm, as much as my team and I do every day, and it's a lot, I do not allow anything to get in the way of the quiet time. And when I know it is time just to turn down the noise and allow my body to just relax and just heal itself.
Thank you. And then the last question we ask is, do you have a book recommendation you would like to offer to our listeners? It could be something that's just meant something to you in your journey. It can be on nutrition, whatever, anything that just has meant something to you along the way.
Oh man, there's a lot. Good Lord. One of my favorite is Dr. Greger's How Not to Die. I think that's my favorite book. I give it to a lot of people to read. I think Dr. Greger's Bird Flu should be a must-read for everyone. Things like coronavirus and the other flus, they didn't come out of no thin air. And I just think that's a must-read, that we start engaging on how we get prepared for the future. But those are probably the two of my favorite. And then I'm a nut for Malcolm Gladwell. I just think he's a great storyteller, and I enjoy his stories and his books. But those are the three that I would say.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much. And thank you again for joining us today on the podcast.
Thank you.
If any of our listeners want to get involved or find you, where can they find you and learn more about getting involved in your initiative?
You go to my website. It's eadams@brooklyn.nyc.gov.
All right. Well, thank you so much again, Brooklyn Borough President Adams.
Thank you very much. Take care.
Thanks for tuning in to another episode of Courageous Wellness. Tune in every Wednesday for a new episode featuring a different guest each week.
Subscribe, rate, and write us a nice review. And you can also follow us on Instagram @Courageous Wellness, or get in touch through our website, www.courageouswellnesspodcast.com.
Until next week, I'm Allie.
And I'm Erica, and we're Courageous Wellness.